Okay, good morning, all. As Leon said, my name is Patty Miller. I've got my friend Wally the Whale with me this morning to help me do this talk. But hopefully you guys have been able to get out in the water, those of you that are here in Hawaii, and see the whales. We've got tons of them, especially over here on Maui, lots of them that we're seeing. But I am the education coordinator for the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary. What a name. I am based here on Maui, where we have a visitor center. We're located right on the water. We can see the whales. It's an awesome place. So I want to say, come visit us. But today we are a little strapped for time here. I'm going to go right into my talk about humpback whales. And it's kind of Humpback Whales 101. What did you ever want to know about a humpback whale? And I hope I know all the answers to your questions. But Leon, let's go ahead and start with, let's see what the first question is. Why are they called humpbacks? Interesting question here. Well, they're called humpbacks because when they dive down underwater, they hump their back. So as they're swimming along and they go down underwater, you're going to see them dive. They're going to hump their back, go down underwater, and their tail will come up. You know, years ago, many years ago, on the East Coast, they had what were called the right whales, and they're still called the right whales today, but they were called the right whales because when they were out hunting, the hunters would go, "There's the right one, go get it." And they started calling them the right whales, and they called them the right whales ever since. And we call ours the humpbacks because of they hump the back when they go underwater. Next question here, Leon. So how big is a humpback whale? Well, obviously bigger than what I have here. They're so big that it's very difficult to study them in person. They're about 40 to 50 tons and about 40 to 50 feet long. And I love this image because it shows the person. It shows you, that's about a 6 foot tall person, in perspective to this whale and what it means if you get hit by that whale. For kids, the great measurement here is the school bus. This is the largest size school bus that the kids will take on field trips, and it's something they can relate to. So it's as long as a school bus. Next, Leon. Are they a kind of fish? And the answer is next, no, they are not a fish. They are in the mammal family, just like us. And they have the characteristics that we do. They have we are warm-blooded. They have hair. We're going to come back to that hair next. They breathe air and they give live birth. And which means they are giving milk to the mom's giving milk to that baby. So let's go back to the hair question for a minute. Where in the world do you see the hair on a whale? Well, see those bumps on the top of the head there? Those are called tubercles. I call them giant warts. But inside, in the middle of each one of those is a tiny little hair, and they don't know what these hairs do. Maybe it's a way of sensing things. They don't know, and the whale can't tell us. But that's where the hair is located on a whale. Got to hit all those things to be a mammal. Next. They breathe air. They have two muscles. They have two blowholes on the top of their head. A dolphin only has one. A humpback has two, but they are able to close those nostrils when they go underwater. So obviously you would hold your nose as you go underwater. These guys don't. They have a muscle that is strong enough to do that. And I challenge you right now, can you close your nose without using your hand? I don't think so. Next one. The babies, it's really interesting. The babies drink milk from their mom, as all mammals do. And it fascinates me. How does that baby know where to find that milk? Well, underneath on the bottom side of the whale, there are two little slits. Whales do not have nipples. Somehow there must be a smell or something that brings that baby immediately to that slit. The baby nudges the slit, hangs down underneath it, and then the milk just pours out, just like turning on a faucet, into that baby's mouth. The milk is so rich in butterfat and in fat that it doesn't dissolve quickly in the water, and the baby drinks it. Drinks about 100 gallons of milk a day. So think about how much milk that mom is producing every day for that baby whale. Next. It's an interesting one. This goes back to looking at where did we come from? Well, they figured that the closest living relative to us is the hippopotamus, to the whale, is the hippopotamus right now. Again, these are just theories, we don't know, but if you have kids and you're a teacher, this might be something that you get the kids to look up, see if they can find anything like, did we really come from dinosaurs or monkeys? What is that history with us? Next. Whales, to spot them out in the ocean, and this is something that you guys, if you're on the beach or on a whale watch boat, you want to look for. So you can see the following things. There's a couple of B's here to look for, the 3 B's. You can see the blow, you can see the body parts, and you can see the breech. So let's look first at the blow. So the blow here, when the whale exhales, that blow comes out at about 300 miles an hour. Kids can relate to that as driving down the road. And what's interesting is that the scientists will collect the moisture in that blow, and they used to use a pole with a little cup on the end of it, and they put it over on top of the whale's head, and they try to capture the moisture. Well, now they're getting more scientific and more technical, and they're using a drone called the Snotbot of all names, and they collect that and from that can get their DNA, and they can learn a lot of things about the whale, where they come from, male or female, if the female is pregnant, etc. So again, it's called the Snotbots. Then we got the body parts, and this is what you can see from both land and from out on a boat. You're going to see that pec fin, and that pec fin is going to wave at you like that. I sat on the beach and counted, 15, 20 times where that pec fin will just go up and down, up and down, up and down. You will see also the tail, which is called the flukes. And notice these are all 15 feet long. The whale itself is 45 feet. So that tail is 1/3 the length of the body. The pec fin is 1/3 the length of the body. The next one you're going to see, possibly, is the spy hop, where that whale sticks his head up out of the water, turns it around, looks for things. What does it see out there? I've never actually seen that, but that'd be kind of cool. Why it's sticking their head up there? Maybe it heard something. Next one, and then this one is really interesting. It's a lunge. And these two animals in the back are lunging at each other. They are basically fighting. And from the shore, what you'll notice is a lot of splashing going on. And what's happening is that these two male whales are actually following that female that's out in front. They are looking for to become the boyfriend of that female, and they will fight. And it's like the survival of the fittest. And then one of them will give up, swim away. Another whale will come up from underneath and fight for that spot. And then what I like best here about this is that the female will decide, okay, I've had enough of this. I like you or I don't, and she swims away. But this is what you'll see is this, they pound on each other. They actually draw blood, but it's a lot of splashing. So if you see that going on, and if you're out on a boat and have a chance to get up close, it's really kind of cool to see. Next. And then we see the breech, which is awesome, which all of us would love to see at some point. How does that whale get its whole body out of the water? It's got a muscle on the end of it that down by the tail that lifts that whale out of the water. Can you lift yourself out of a swimming pool? I don't think so without touching the bottom. That's a breech. Next. We have the whales are identified by the patterns on their tails. Every tail is different. So we have the whale up here, 2353 in the right-hand corner. Which tail does it match there? The scientists will go out and they'll take a picture of this tail. They'll come back inside and they will try to match it to pictures in a catalog that they have collected and see if it is the same or if it's a different whale. Is it a new one that's now being seen down in Hawaii? As you can imagine, they have thousands and thousands of these pictures. These poor interns that sit there and go through these pictures. They have to do it by pictures, cannot do it by computer. Dolphins can be identified by and matched up by computer, but whale tails cannot. So can you match that tail? Do we know which one it is? Okay, next. Or I think, are you going to do that, Leon? Go ahead. Have you matched the tail?
Yeah, we had some people in the audience. I think we had 3/4 of people saying J, 1L. So it looks like our audience got it correct there. It is J.
Okay, yep. Great. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Yes, that's it. You guys could be, you're now whale researchers, guys. Okay, next. Where do humpback whales live? Well, We know that they live down here in Hawaii during the winter time, at least our whales do. They come down here to mate, to give birth, they frolic, they play, but they don't eat. We're not very hospitable down here. Don't have any food for them. They're down here from about starting November, starting about April, they go back up to Alaska. They're hungry, if you can imagine, not eating all those months. They swim back up to Alaska and they feed when they get back up to Alaska, and they eat and they eat and they eat. Now, humpback whales do not have teeth. So what they have is called baleen. And this baleen, and if we want to take a look at this here for a minute, I think Leon's going to show you up close better. They have these big plates of baleen that actually hang down from the roof of the mouth. The whale will open its big, wide mouth. It's got a mouth a third the size of the body, and you're going to see this up here in a minute. And they have a huge tongue that will swirl around and around and around in the mouth. And that tongue will pull off all the little fish and krill that got stuck on these hairs. As you can see, they've got little tiny hairs. There's a lot longer on a one that hasn't been handled a lot. This baleen actually came out of a whale in Alaska, a dead whale. They were able to give us a piece of this that shows these hairs. These are the baleen plates. It's like your fingernails are about 6 feet long or longer. There's about 200 of them. So you can imagine how much fish and krill can get trapped on these little tiny hairs along the mouth here. So let's go to the next slide. I'm glad Leon is monitoring this one.
Sorry, I was just trying to zoom in on you to show the baleen.
Okay.
I forgot to zoom in on you so people can see that there.
Oh, I thought you had been. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
so people can see it there.
Okay, yeah, so this is what the baleen looks like, guys. They actually used to take this part of the baleen when the whales were hunted, and they would use it to make the styes and like women's girdles and pieces of clothing there to give it stiffness. If you can imagine, ladies, how uncomfortable that would be. Okay, pretty cool. Okay, let's go. And what was interesting is that one time I took this to an outreach and I had it outside. It got wet. I didn't think twice about it. Put it in the back of my car, drove home, and my car started to smell. Got home and realized this was from this had been from a real animal and was really stinking once I got there. Okay, let's go to the next picture. This is what they eat. They eat krill, which are those little tiny shrimp-like things down on that finger. They have a whole bunch of them. They're taking in, they eat about a ton of these a day. If you can imagine how much food that means has to be up there to feed all the different whales that are up there. The bottom picture shows this whale's mouth open. Now the whale has in its bottom jaw, as you can see in that bottom picture, it's like pleats in it, kind of like an accordion, that this mouth opens wide up. It allows that whale to take in a huge gulp of water. It then, as it kind of spits out the water, it's trapping again all that fish and krill on those little hairs. Their tongue, which is the size of a little car, that's kind of gross, size of a car, is what they use to pull that off. And then they sink down underwater. We're going to show you a video of this. I think that might be next. Leon, go ahead. Okay, this is the bubble net feeding. What they do is swim around and around and around in a circle. And they create this bubble net, and it traps all the little fish and krill into one big clump. They open that mouth. They take a big mouthful of water. They're trapping that fish at the same time. They come to the surface, as you can see the guy down there on the right. He's spitting out as much water as he can and then trapping that fish. It just goes right down the throat. And now what's interesting is that the back of the throat is only, this is a dryer hose, is only as big as like a dryer hose or a grapefruit. And I always say to the kids, could he swallow you? And I don't think so. That whale can only eat little things. It could not eat a shark. It could not eat a bird. You'll see the birds fly into the mouth of the whale, grab fish out. They must know they can't be swallowed. And here's the question. No, they cannot swallow you. Okay, next. Now, here is a feeding video. Go ahead and play this. This is all the little fish and krill swimming around. The whales have trapped it. Here's the whale coming out of the water. That's the mouth. That is so cool. The mouth opens up, takes that gulp of water and all that little fish and krill in that mouth. and then they sink back down. We were up in Alaska when we were filming this. I was on a boat when we were in research permit, so we were up close. And there was this whole group of these whales were together. There were probably maybe 8 of them or so, 8 or 10. They feed as a group like that. Your duty, thank you. And as they're doing this, they're, like I said, they're taking in all that fish. They then sunk down back underwater. And what was kind of interesting is that off on the side, we saw another batch of whales coming towards us, another group. And our whales came to the surface. They saw these guys coming and they said, nope, we're not sharing our food. They chased them away. That other pod of whales went away. Our guys went back to feeding. And we must have sat there for 2 or 3 hours watching this process over and over again. Really awesome. If you're up in Alaska and have a chance to see this, it is just so cool. That bubble net comes right in front of your boat. You see those bubbles come to the surface, and then these giant things open their mouths. Really amazing. But it's how a baleen whale feeds versus a toothed animal that's going to catch something. Okay, one more time. I think Leon likes this. It's really cool. Okay, but crazy but true. They eat about 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of krill and fish every day. That's the same as 250 Big Macs every hour. Multiply that by 24. How many Big Macs next are you going to be eating at a time? So we've only got a couple minutes left here. We want to just show you this part about, do they make sounds? And yes, the male whales sing. Females do not sing. They do not know why, but it's only the males that sing. They're not quite sure what they're trying to say, whether they're giving directions as to whether they're going or what they're doing. We don't know, but it's only the males. They're not asking for the females. And it's, I'm going to be quiet here for a second. As you can see, it's not really a song. It's little spurts of noises, grunts and groans that are put together. And they tend to kind of sing similar songs, the same whales. And over a year, that song will change. But all the whales will have the same basic grunts and groans as they sing. You can actually find some of these whale sounds online if you look for it. But it's kind of cool, especially over here on Maui. We're able to hear the whales singing. There's so many here on the water. If you are out snorkeling or diving, just kind of sit still for a minute and you're going to hear that grunting and groaning, the singing of those whales. 1 second left here. The last thing here, let's talk about threats to the humpback whales. And we have the tiger sharks here in Hawaii, might go after them. We've got the killer whales in Alaska, but remember how big these whales are. They're probably going after the babies. The babies are about 15 feet long versus that whale that's like a school bus. So it depends on what it is. Moms will tend to swim together back to Alaska so that they get the protection of each of them. But our biggest issue here is marine debris, and it's not just the little stuff, but it's the big nets that they get entangled with. And our program has some great information on it if you go to our website about Ed Lyman, our researcher that goes out and disentangles the whale. What a cool story. If you were a kid and you had to write a story about what does your dad do? It's like, my dad disentangles whales, saves whales. I'm going to leave you at this point. I could talk forever here, folks, but I need to leave you. I think my time is up unless we have a few questions. Leon, I can't read these questions really well. Let's see.
Yeah, there are a few questions in the chat. I know the Bishop Museum audience has to start rotating it out. So maybe if you're there, Tony, are there any questions from the Bishop Museum audience? Maybe one that we can answer?
Anybody have any questions?
I'm just curious. I know in Hawaii, one of the biggest threats is tiger sharks. Is that always been the case, or is that something that's happened in recent years?
Can you repeat that question first, Tony? Sorry.
Yeah. So they asked about threats to humpbacks in Hawaii, and if tiger sharks have always been a threat, or if that's something more recent.
Basically the only time I think that it's a possibility, but I don't hear that happening down here. We hear the tiger sharks going after the turtles. And any animal going after a whale, it has to be a sick whale or it's got to be a baby because they are so big. So it's just a possibility, but it's not something that we would normally see. No.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we have one more question from the Bishop audience, Maddie.
Yeah. So the other question from here: why do the whales only come here in the winter?
They don't only come here. We just have whales that like Hawaii. They also go to warm waters is what they're doing. So they'll go off the coast of down into the California area where the water is warmer than it is in Alaska. They'll go down to over to Japan and other areas in the Pacific. So it just depends on they're going to warm water because part of it, I think, is keeping the babies when they're born down here. I guess they just like them. But it's not just us, it's warm water. But we do have a population that comes back and forth. They seem to know that highway that goes between us and Alaska back and forth.
Okay, thank you so much. So folks here in the audience, if you want to give a round of applause, then they can hear. Okay, and I'm going to mute from this side, and we'll switch over for the next talk. But folks who are online, if you guys want to ask your questions, then you can go ahead and do that.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it. And thanks for the questions, everyone. Do you see my my screen, Patty? Is it showing that?
It shows water, warm and cold water. Yes.
So
I see
that
what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So this was the question about the migration path of the whales, maybe. So this is, addressing a little bit. So you can see there are different bodies that move up and down, and the background temperatures, the background colors represent how warm or cool the ocean temperatures are. So that's just something I was able to pull up quickly to address Anna's question there. Yeah.
I had kind of a fun situation. We want to talk here for just a minute to the audience that's still there?
Yeah.
Several years ago, and I'm, again, educator, standing in our visitor center, our our deck looks right out on the ocean. It was late on a Friday afternoon, and this lady and her family come up and she says, how do we make the whales come out of the water? And I thought, well, that's kind of a silly question. I thought she was kidding. And I said, if you sing Yankee Doodle, they're going to pop right up. And I kind of turned around and left and went on to something else. And I turned around and they're singing Yankee Doodle, the family, really loud. And the next minute, I hear them cheering. A whale pops up right out in the water by chance, right in front of us. And she goes, I didn't know they could hear. This is so cool. I had to go out and say, I was joking. But now every time I take people out on a whale watch and we're not seeing the whales, I go, you guys got to sing Yankee Doodle and they're going to pop right up. So if you guys are out there looking for whales, sing the Yankee Doodle and you'll make them pop up. It's kind of funny. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patty. Thanks so much for your time. And if we can all give Patty a big virtual round of applause. And thank you for those great props and stuff too. Appreciate it.
Bye, guys. Have a good day.
All right. Take care, Patty. Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks.
So our next presenter is Keith Kamikawa. I believe, are you on here, Keith? Yes. So I don't know if your camera is on, Keith, but we can sort of start transitions, and you can do some tests if you want on your end. Let me unmute you and make you a co-host too. Oh, I think I might have forgotten to stop the recording. Hold on.